Welcome to our webinar today, the CMCA recertification process, keeping your CMCA up and your stress level down. My name is Karina May, and I am one of the webinar administrators here at CAMICB.
And my name is Laura Lozano, and I am the Credentialing Associate here at CAMICB. Before we get started with the webinar, I just wanted to let everyone know that the presentation will last about 15 minutes. You can submit any questions you have throughout the presentation by using the tool on the control panel. You can also find a PDF copy of the presentation with hyperlinks. And at the end of the program, we will answer as many questions as possible. We will respond to any questions not answered during the webinar via email after the program.
Let's get started. What is recertification and why do we do it? Recertification is essentially the renewing of your CMCA. And there are a couple of reasons of why we do this. First off, it allows managers to show that you are dedicated to your profession, to your employers, peers, and those living in community associations. It also allows managers to stay current and continuously improve their knowledge base in an ever-changing environment. And lastly, it helps managers enhance their marketability and increase their earning potential. And in fact, according to the most recent Foundation for Community Association Research salary survey, managers who earn the CMCA have an average 20% higher earning income potential than their non-credentialed peers. All right, and with that, let's talk about the deadlines. So managers are going to be placed in either an April 1 or an October 1 recertification cycle when they become certified. So if a manager passes their CMCA exam between January 1st to June 30th, they'll be placed in the April 1 cycle. If they pass their CMCA exam between July 1st and December 31st, they'll be placed in the October 1 recertification cycle. Now, in order to renew, managers will need to pay the annual non-refundable service fee of $135 by either April 1st or October 1st, depending on their renewal deadline date each year. And they must also recertify every 2 years. And we'll go into that process just a bit later. And if you're ever confused about what your renewal dates are or what your status is, you can either go to camicb.org and select the Find a CMCA directory to look at your listing, or you can go to camicb.org and log in to look at your profile information by selecting the My Profile option in the upper right-hand corner. And here you'll see a screenshot of that Find a CMCA directory, which is going to be on the CAMICB website, and where you would search to find your name in the directory. We often get asked about what happens if a manager doesn't recertify by the deadline. And so if a manager does not complete their renewal requirements by the deadline date, that means their CMCA will lapse and be terminated. So that means in order to regain their certification, they would have to complete the reinstatement process. All right, now let's move on to how to recertify. In order to recertify, managers need to earn and document 16 hours of continuing education every 2 years. They'll also need to continue to practice community association management. And the final process is going to be completing and submitting the recertification application by the renewal deadline date. You can either submit that application with the downloadable PDF, which was on the previous slide, or you can submit that via email, fax, or mail. Or as you can see here on the screen, you can submit this application online with the recertification application. I also wanted to note that CAMICB does not maintain a record of continuing education. It's the manager's responsibility to track their completed education and then report it on this recertification application we are talking about. So what are the continuing education requirements for recertification? In order to recertify, managers need to complete 16 hours of continuing education earned within that 2-year recertification cycle. Or if they hold an active AMS or PCAM designation with CAI, the NAH-RCM, and that stands for the National Association of Housing Cooperatives Registered Cooperative Manager certification, or a Nevada CAM license. This will actually count as your 16 hours. And you can use this in lieu of listing out 16 hours that you've completed during that 2-year renewal period. And as you can see here on the application, if you hold one of those qualifying certifications or licensures, you can complete this section instead of listing out 16 hours. Now we'll move on and go into what counts as continuing education. Continuing education credit hours must be either relevant to community association management or to your professional development as a manager. These credits must be approved either through CAMICB, or it can also be approved by a state regulatory agency for manager licensing, which includes Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Nevada, and Virginia. So to recap, the options available for you to complete continuing education, you can look at our list of approved continuing education on our website, and we have a list of all the different programs that we've approved that are available for managers to take. You also have the option to look at CAI headquarters or CAI chapters for continuing education programs. All of these are going to be approved, so you could also find them on the list of approved continuing education. You also have the option of completing any continuing education that your state has approved and use that towards your CMCA recertification. Or if you've completed coursework that has not been approved by CAMICB or a state regulatory agency, you can submit that information to CAMICB to be considered for approval. Any information that you would like to have considered, you can send to info@camicb.org. And then one of the questions we get a lot on the continuing education opportunities is, where can managers find free or low-cost courses? And managers can find these free or low-cost courses in our list of approved continuing education, where we list all continuing education programs that have been approved. So there are many providers who offer free and low-cost options, and you can search this in the directory with keywords like free or webinar. Okay, now let's move on to what does not count as continuing education. Laura, can you tell us a bit about that?
Absolutely. So courses related to the buying and selling of real estate are not acceptable as continuing education for CMCA renewal. Courses like this can be things like working with real estate investors or understanding investors' strategies. These are examples of courses that we will not be able to accept as continuing education towards CMCA recertification. That being said, CMCA managers who hold a real estate license still can submit their continuing education they took for the license for approval. And we will approve education as long as it pertains to community association management or the professional development. But again, not any courses about buying or selling of real estate. So for example, some topics of things that we could approve are things like fair housing, ADA compliance, ethics, and so on. Now, there are other options for earning continuing education hours that are available for managers. First, there is what's called in-house training, and this is limited to 8 hours of continuing education per renewal cycle. In-house training is defined as education provided directly from your management company and employer. For example, a lunch and learn taught by a senior manager of your company will qualify as in-house training, but a lunch and learn posted by your management company where a third party, such as a law firm, came in to teach on a topic, this will not be considered in-house training. And if you have any questions about what does and does not qualify as in-house training, you're always welcome to reach out to us at info@camicb.org for clarification. We also have the option of self-study credits, and this requires pre-approval by CAMICB in order to be authorized, and this is limited to no more than 4 continuing education credits per recertification cycle. Another option we have are teaching credits. If you're teaching a course, program, or event that has to do with continuing education, with community association management, or professional development, we can award you approval for teaching this program. You can earn 2 credits of continuing education per class hour the first time that this course or program is taught, and then you will receive 1 continuing education credit hour per class hour when the same course is retaught. And then lastly, we also have authorship credits. If you have written any content that has to do with community association management, things like articles, blogs, novels, we can also award you continuing education credits based on the number of words that you have included in that content. So for example, if you have a published piece that was 500 to 1,000 words, we could give you 2 hours. 1,000 to 1,500 will be 3 hours, and then anything above 1,500 words we go award 4 credits. And if you complete a work that is more extensive, like a book or a journal, we can award you up to 10 hours based on individual analysis of that content.
And next here, we have an option to obtain continuing education, which is volunteer hours. Laura, can you tell us a bit about this option?
Absolutely. So the CAMICB Board of Directors approved credential holders to use their time volunteering for organizations whose mission pertains to advancing community associations or the management profession towards their CMCA renewal. This includes work such as a volunteering for a community association board, volunteer for a CAI chapter, or providing advocacy work like offering official testimony or analysis on legislation or regulation. And please note that this is not the same as lobbying, which is not accepted. And also credential holders may not be compensated for any time they request volunteer hours for. Here you see how many hours you can be awarded for each type of volunteer service, such as how you can earn up to 4 hours of credit volunteer for an HOA or condo board. You'll notice that you cannot use any more than 8 hours of total volunteer service per renewal period. For credential holders to use the volunteer time towards their CMCA, they will first need to have it submitted to CAMICB for approval. And we have created a helpful application for managers to include the volunteer service information. And we have included this with this presentation. So once you have completed the application, you should send it to info@camicb.org for staff to review and approve. And please note that the information you include with your application must be specified and verifiable. This means you will need to include the dates you volunteer, the organization information, and as much detailed information as possible regarding your volunteer work. If you're looking to have some of the continuing education you have completed and it has not been pre-approved by CAMICB, please reach out to CAMICB for this application, which is called Request for Continuing Education Approval Application. All right, now why do managers have to respond to these questions on the recertification application? CAMICB is a certification body, so this means that the CMCA is a credential, signifying that CAMICB, an international credentialing body, identifies this manager as having demonstrated qualifying knowledge and integrity to practice in this industry. And as a certification body, it is then our responsibility to verify every 2 years that a CMCA has continued to uphold their knowledge and integrity with both continuing education and by abiding with the standards of professional conduct. We also do this because any violation of the CMCA standards of professional conduct may result in the revocation of the CMCA certification by CAMICB. All right, and on the last slide, here's a list of useful resources. So we have a number of useful links. And again, if you want to access any of these links, you can download the PDF handout of this presentation, which is available via your control panel and has all of the links embedded. So the first link that we have is to the CMCA Standards of Professional Conduct. If you ever want to check those out and refresh your knowledge on what those are. There's also the CMCA Handbook, and this goes over all of the policies that we have regarding continuing education. We also have the CMCA recertification application, and this is a link to the PDF application form if you want to download that and submit it by email, fax, or mail. We also have a couple of links to our social media and other resources. So if you want, you can follow us on Facebook, where we post upcoming events and blog articles and other news related to community association management. We also have the CMCA Corner blog, and we have all sorts of blogs and interesting articles related to hot topics between the community association management industry. And then lastly, we also invite you to follow us on LinkedIn. This is a great resource, again, to look at the latest news and upcoming events with CAMICB. And it also gives you an opportunity to network with other CMCAs. All right, thank you everyone for joining us today. Now let's see if we have received any questions from our audience.
All right, let's go ahead and see here. If you have any questions, please use the toolbar and type them in. All right, I see a couple questions from Mandy. The continuing education list on the website only has expired options. Are there going to be any new ones offered?
So the webinars that are available on the website, or the continuing education that it's available, shows the date that continuing education opportunity was approved by us. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it has expired. And I also wanted to clarify that CAMICB does not offer continuing education. Those are organizations that have reached out to us requesting approval for this webinar or course or Lunch and Learn. So if you're interested in any of these options, you should reach out to the company, which you'll find the email address, and then ask them about how to sign up for that continuing education opportunity.
Thank you. And then I see Mandy also asked about this webinar. Where will it be available? If you wouldn't mind repeating that.
So you can access the webinar recording on our CAMICB website, and you'll find it under webinar, and you'll see webinar archives. That's where you'll find the webinar info.
Great, thanks. Amy has a question. How do you submit the in-house training?
Sure. So you need to request approval for the in-house training. And like I mentioned, there is an application that is available. You can download that application from our website, or you can simply send us an email. The email address is at the bottom of the presentation. And then request that application. It's a PDF application, and then we can send it to you.
And she just asked, do you have to request that ahead of time?
No. So once you have completed the training, you need to submit that application back to us, requesting the approval, because the application also asks you for the certificate of attendance or any proof of attendance. So this must be submitted after you have completed the continuing education opportunity.
All right, thank you. Justin has a question. How soon can you submit a recertification application?
So 90 days prior to your deadline date, you can submit the recertification application. So let's say if your CMCA renewal, it's due by April 1st, then by January 1st, you can start submitting the application. Or if the deadline date is October 1st, then by July 1st, you're ready to submit the application as well.
Okay, great, thanks. And Tara would like to know, does attending CA Day for your state count as continuing education?
We will need to look at the information that the CA Day includes, so we can move forward with the approval.
And then Amy has another question. So Amy says that they do not provide certificates, but they have monthly in-house trainings.
So we unfortunately need to have some sort of proof you attended in order for us to approve it. Be an email confirmation, or anything that shows that you attended that continuing education opportunity.
All right. What about a Zoom confirmation?
Well, I'm not sure how you can submit a Zoom confirmation, but sometimes when you register for a continuing education, you received an email confirming that you have registered for that. So that can also count.
All right. And then Marisol has a question. How many credits are the CAI courses, the ones approved, for example, from Law Day?
So the CAI courses, they vary as how many credits they are. I'm not 100% sure how many credits the Law Day provides, But I'm sure that information is available on the website. As soon as you're trying to register, you can see how many credits you will earn by that course.
Great, thank you. All right, well, it looks like there are no more questions right now, so we're going to go ahead and close out the webinar. But if you do think of any other questions, or if you have any questions that we didn't get to, or anything else you can think of, you can always email us at info@camicb.org. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.